What's the number one challenge for businesses today?
Workforce development, attracting, recruiting, and retaining people.
And that's why we created this podcast, designed for the frustrated CEO, the under-resourced recruiter, or the overworked manager, to give you the tools to tackle those WTF moments.
It's time to open another workforce therapy file.
Welcome back. We're doing the second file of 3, talking about recruiting begins with retention. So in our last file, we talked about that 0 to 6 months group we called the excitables, lovingly called the excitables. And this time we want to talk about the 6 months to 3 years group. And we are going to call those individuals the evolvers.
Dun, dun, dun.
So I want to start with a quote that I got from Fortune magazine. Employees who leave within the first 6 to 12 months cite reasons like feeling out of sync with the company's culture or mission, not understanding the employee's impact, and discovering that their tasks or responsibilities were not as described. I thought that was pretty interesting considering the things that we talked about in the last file align with making sure people know those things in the first 6 months, right? So I think a good description for this batch is that all of the things we either did or did not do in the first 6 months start to really set us up for that 6 month and beyond.
Well, and typically you find that most individuals that hit that 6 month mark in most organizations, they start to get comfortable, they've made friends, they're in a routine, there's some consistency there. So the act of actively engaging in your work with your peers is typically there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So not having it at that point.
They know where the bathroom is.
Right.
They know how to eat their lunch in 30 minutes.
We clearly have a thing with needing to know where the bathroom is.
It's important.
Listen, if you take anything out of this series, make sure your employees know where the bathroom is.
Please.
Over here changing lives.
Yes. So would you guys say it's fair to say, and again, I don't know, I'm a marketing guy. Would you guys say it's fair to say that, a lot of the responsibility kind of floats away from the recruiting team at this point, and the management over that team and that employee is now kind of more so responsible for retention. And so often they're not focused on this group, the 6 months to 3 year, the evolvers, because they're like, oh, they're comfortable, they've got it, they understand what they're doing. I need to focus on the new people and help them get on board. Yeah. So sometimes they'll get kind of left alone.
For the record, Jason is the recruiter in the room representing that side of the fence. I don't think it's a recruiting problem when you hit this mark if they leave. There's some joint accountability at the point that the person's made the offer letter. I think there needs to be a healthy handoff from recruiting to orientation and onboarding with that individual. I know we're going back to 0 to 6 months, sorry, but just to make the point of, I think it's imperative to know that it's not a recruiting problem at that juncture.
And I think leaders, if you find yourself saying, I'm starting to see this failure between 6 and 8 months, it's a theme that I need to affect. And you're like, I really wish we knew blank about somebody before they started. That would be a time where you'd go back to the recruiter and say, can we start asking different questions or getting a different assessment?
But their reason for leaving, is it because they were recruited?
That's right.
Yeah.
I'll ask you all this as well, since you're the experts in the room on this. What percentage, this is not going to be a scientific answer, but roughly how many organizations do you encounter that have someone dedicated to retention?
No one is dedicated. And the thing is I feel like everybody talks about it, but the amount of effort that goes into having, I don't know anybody who's like, I work in the organization's retention department.
More often than not, in conversations that I go into, and these are C-suite people, these are business owners, these are key decision makers. I have a list of questions. One of them being, do you know what your turnover is today? Nope. Do you know what it costs you to hire someone, one person? Nope. Do you know how much it costs your organization for that position to go unfilled? Nope. If you're running an organization with a large amount of people, let's just say they're 50 employee count and up. I mean, it's below that, but let's be real. How do you not know those things?
Right.
How do I not know what it costs to hire a $50,000 person and how much it's costing my company for that position to go unfilled.
If you don't say soft dollar right now, I don't even know you.
I'm trying to avoid
I hear it
saying
coming.
soft dollar.
Feel it.
So
Damn
right
those
there,
soft
that tells you, that's why this conversation, this 3-part series is so important. If we as organizations are not dedicating even one person in our entire company to retention,
Yep.
we have to have a plan around it. We have to have a process around it. At a very minimum, we have to have someone with their eyes on it. It's at least a part of their job.
Yes.
So that's why I asked that question a second ago about, it's sort of a handoff from recruiting to management for the retention piece. But is that conversation happening? Do they sit around a round table in a room and say, okay, guys, we're the recruiters. We've got them onboarded. They're part of the team. Now, management, you got your plan together for retaining them? They don't do that, do they?
It depends.
In most cases.
It depends. I have worked in some organizations that took a much more active glance at understanding their turnover.
Yeah.
But that's because we were in a problematic space.
Right. It
on
was
turnover.
reactive to a situation.
Right.
It
Yes.
wasn't.
It wasn't something that
Yeah.
was just naturally embedded in the practices, if you will.
And a recurring theme with the workforce therapy files is we understand talent teams are overwhelmed. It is
1000%.
insane how overwhelmed they are. And so, not that we don't want this to sound, I don't want this to sound blamative. I just want to make sure everyone listening understands that if your organization is not dedicating a resource to retention, someone has to think about it.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
and to that point of no one thinking about it, and that's definitely something that needs to be, even if it's somebody's 10%, you've got 10 people and it's 10% of their job is to be focused on retention. That's what you have to do. So at the point in which an individual gets to 6 months to 3 years, how do you flip that level of engagement to have them accountable to that engagement as opposed to being a part of a high touch organization from that 0 to 6 months? Do you look at that new hire that's hit their 6-month anniversary and say, would you like to be a mentor? How would you like to get engaged? What are the things that would bring you joy in this position outside of the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you have for the role? So I definitely think understanding what that transition looks like and why it's important. But at that point, the value proposition that person can bring to the table in that 6 months to 3 years is priceless. You've trained them.
Absolutely.
You've put them in a situation of success. How can you keep them engaged to share that excitement as they're continuing to evolve into the organization and hopefully look for the career lattice and what their next position is? And are all of those things clearly stated as more than a poster on your wall?
So as you think about being a leader of individuals at different places in their tenure, it's taking it from the introductory conversations to the development conversations.
Right.
It's the how are your first couple days going are now turning into stay interviews.
Right.
How are things going? What do you need? Now that you're more familiar with the organization, where do you see yourself going? How can I help you get there? Right? It is knowing that your company is going to benefit from everyone being it. You're going to have some people that want to stay exactly where they're at.
And that's
right?
okay.
And that's perfectly fine.
You need those.
But you're going to have individuals who are going to feel like, hey, there was all this upfront attention that was given to me, and it's all completely plateaued or declined because now you're still paying attention to the new hires. And it's been very interesting to me because everywhere I've ever worked that did engagement surveys, there was a sharp decline in overall engagement at 3 years. And I think it's because there's so much energy, even if it's not all the right energy, devoted to people when they're first getting started. There's these touch points that make the work interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And if we aren't staying focused on adding variety, either through job rotation or I saw one company that did internal career fairs so that you can learn about the other departments.
Oh, I
neat.
love
and
that.
figuring out what they're doing. That was really neat.
Yeah.
So finding ways to keep people engaged and what the opportunities or how to dive deeper into the organization's purpose or culture or those kinds of things can be very meaningful.
So as we're talking through surveys and what that means to the decision makers and hearing from their employees of what they want and just getting their perspective, we've talked about this a little bit, but you can attract top talent all day long, and getting them in the door and getting them assimilated helping them become profitable for your organization, helping them see their value to the organization. But if you do surveys in your company and you do 0 with that data when it comes back, it will continue to get worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
Because why are you asking me if you're not going to do anything about it? So I think one of the greatest ways to help with retention is to listen to what they're saying and promote it.
Yes.
Because I think, I can't remember if it was you, Jamie, or Jason, somebody said something about the acknowledgement of what's being said. The greatest way to close the door so people stop leaving, people want to be heard.
Absolutely.
Because regardless of how many, let's go with all the horrible phrases, butts in seats, I just need somebody to fill this seat. All of those phrases.
A trained monkey could do this job.
Trained monkey can do this job. Horrible,
Mm-hmm.
horrible things. They're still human. They still want to be appreciated just as much as you do.
Absolutely.
Even though you say you don't enjoy that, everybody enjoys being acknowledged that they're here.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most powerful, to your point, one of the most powerful phrases I think you can say to an employee, whether you can solve their problem or not, is, I hear you. I hear
Yep.
you.
I love that.
You don't even have to acknowledge that you agree. I hear you. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because often they, like you said, they don't feel heard.
Mm-mm.
And I do think there's also this piece of making sure individuals understand how the role that I'm doing right now reflects on the organization's performance or goals. I saw this, it's a leadership metaphor, but how you approach one man and you say, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm laying bricks. You go to man number 2 and they're like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, I'm building a wall. You go to man number 3 and they're like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, I'm building a cathedral. Helping people understand how those activities, they're all doing the same thing, but the vision is a little bit different. So understanding how I contribute to building the world's most safest car versus I put the seats in, right? Understanding what is that connection? What is the purpose? Why does this role matter?
Yeah.
Is really important for the individuals that are in this evolver phase.
And I
if-
think people need, sorry, Jason, I think people need to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What does it mean if I do this wrong? What does it mean if I do it right? It doesn't mean you have to give them the income statement. It just means that you need to show them what their worth is to the company and why you value their attendance, their punctuality, their commitment to excellence,
Yeah.
their want for growth.
I like your story about the bricklayer and the cathedral, and I think there's a level beyond that where they're saving souls, or the safe car, they're saving lives.
Yes.
That goes back to the vision of the company, and if they don't understand, I would assume in many organizations, the team can't rattle off what the values are, what the vision is for the company, but those things they're there for a reason. Someone may have just scratched them down early, but if that's what happened, you need to go revisit those as an organization and rewrite those, because it needs to be at the core of what you do. Everybody needs to understand where you're going, not just where I am today.
We do that every year. We look at our mission, vision, and values at Incipio every year. Our why. Or is this really what we want? Is this really who we are? Is this really where we're going? And every year we'll make changes, whether it be 1 word or 5 words. One of the biggest things that we're committed to, that I'm committed to, that the recruiting team is committed to within Incipio, as most organizations should be, and I get a lot of slack for this, is individual world peace. What that means, it's not the beauty pageant world peace. I'm not standing on a stage with a sash. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They have great waves. But what does it mean to you to be happy? Where do you find joy? How do you define your personal success? We spend 40 plus hours a week in a job that's giving us a paycheck to be able to live. There are 164 hours in a week, plus travel time, plus. If you are in a job that you enjoy and that you love, are you a better person?
Yeah.
So if you're a better person, then you're going to be a better significant other, a better parent, a better aunt, a better uncle, a better community leader, a better driver. And I think we can all agree that we could use some less aggressive drivers out there. But to find that joy and really feel confident is where that 0 to 6 months to 3 years really comes into play because of your comfort level and passion can be found, I think.
No, I love that. I mean, we need to be hiring people that fit our values as organizations.
That's right.
And as candidates, we need to be choosing organizations to work for that we can agree to those values. We have them sign off on the values, that they agree to uphold these values. And I will let someone go if they don't. And they know that.
And you can
And as long as you're demonstrating those values,
If
it's easy to commit to.
I better, right? And
Right.
our leadership's better. Your leadership, you as the listener, you as a leader need to be communicating that. And don't just brush over, yeah, here's our values and et cetera, et cetera. It's like, hey, these are things that you'll have to agree to if you'd like to work here. And we are serious about this.
Yeah.
Because the values are always things that are common sense, positive things. You're not asking them to join a cult. You're asking them to be part of something bigger and better, and that you want the type of person that wants to be part of that.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we mentioned too was, what happens at 6 months. Just I'm going to back up a little bit to the why. I want to make sure I cover these bullet points for the show notes too. At 6 months, one thing we talked about on the positive side of things, 6 months to 3 years, they're getting comfortable, they're getting confident, and they're getting clarity in their position, hopefully, if we've done our job.
And on the flip side,
support declines for these people, right? I mean, just naturally, no matter what kind of job you're doing.
yeah, I may not be meeting with you every single day. You've been here for 6 months.
Yeah.
And if I do meet with you every day, you're going to be like, seriously, I've been here 6 months. Why are we meeting every day?
Why are you micromanaging me?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It feels like way too much.
I like that voice. Expectations increase too. I mean, hey, you've been here a while, you've been here a year, 2 years. We're going to start piling some more on.
Yeah.
And then issues start to arise. You start to notice the idiosyncrasies about everyone as an individual. There are a lot of people on this planet. Every single one of them is different than the other. You can't treat everyone the same. So you're going to see issues in your team members that arise after that period of time. That could have been a little bit hidden before that or covered up. So those are the things that we're seeing in that period for these evolvers, and those are the things that we're trying to solve with these surveys, with these engagement efforts. All this time we're going to be spending on them, hopefully, to retain them through some of their most productive years, honestly.
One of my favorite leadership trainings actually talked about situational leadership. And if you were to look at this group, this is where in the 0 to 6 months, it's very directive. It's in order to make this part, we're going to do step 1, step 2, step 3, right? At the early part of 6 months to 3 years, that might be the phase where we're starting to give less instruction and making ourselves available for questions or coaching. We might still do some observation. There might be some trying to get to being fully independent and doing the work. So this is also the space where it's really important to up your recognition, to offer those moments of feedback, to give those nuggets of, hey, great job. I really see how you totally picked that up. You really learned that fast. That was really good. What questions do you have, though? You feel comfortable? Like at that 6 months, you're looking for affirmation and making sure that people feel as comfortable as we think they should be feeling by now.
And hopefully they're truthful enough to be able to share that with you, and the environment supports that.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I think that first 6 months, those touch points help build that.
That's right.
Right?
And the continuance of it into the 6 months, even as they evolve, because of the evolvers.
The evolvers.
What does that mean to me? And setting those expectations and understanding, we try to always talk about the business side when the numbers and the metrics and the values, and you need to know those things, because if you are in a position to say, I don't have time for engagement, I don't have time for surveys, I don't have time to hear what these people are coming back to me with, I don't have time for any of this because I'm trying to do my job. Well, how much is it going to cost if they leave? Then what?
And this is your job.
Yeah. Each employee has a piece of your organization's revenue attached to them. You can create metrics around that in various ways, but they have an impact, and the investment that you've made on them is part of that. So creating calculations is fine. It seems a little cold sometimes to put a number to a person, but everyone is worth something. That's the flip side. What is their worth?
And they
what
need
is
to
their
know
value?
that too, I think. I
Yeah.
think it's okay to share that.
And I think being called evolvers also means that this is the point where there is a turning point about which way they're going to evolve.
Yeah, there you go.
Are they going to evolve into your highly engaged individuals who are like, I spent my first 6 months learning how we do things? Or are they going to spend they're going to evolve into individuals that are like, this place doesn't care, no one listens, I'm just going to come in and get my paycheck?
Yeah.
Because this is where I have a creative solution for a problem that I'm seeing, right? Do I know that somebody's going to care about it, or am I going to be like, nobody's going to care, so
Right.
why bring it up?
Managers are starting to really discover their true talents. They may be different than what they were hired for, those
Yeah.
talents. And that's okay. That's good. Now you know. You can use them where they're best. And maybe they need to stay in this role for a little while longer before you do evolve them into something else. But that's key too. Don't leave. You may have hired them for X. Maybe you don't need to leave them in that role if they aren't the best at it, because they're going to be unhappy. You're going to be unhappy with their performance ultimately. So you've got to get them to a place where they can succeed. Their success will be your success ultimately.
So one of the things that's a big differentiator for me in a 0 to 6 months and a 6 months to 3 years, from excitables to evolvers, is the newness wears off. The unknowns are less. And even though you may be excited about your career as it continues to evolve and you continue to learn, one of the things that we can't miss on are employee referrals. Because if you've gotten to that point and you're an individual who's been with an organization for 2 years, you know better than anybody what it's going to take for that to get there. But one of the things that I think employers have a big miss on is they pay the employee for a successful referral. Well, why don't you come up with an employee referral program that's beneficial to both the individual that's been there that's referring someone and the new hire? Why are we still so one-sided with employee referrals? I just think that would be a huge push if you could split that or come up with a creative way. Maybe the employee gets it for referring someone, a successful hire, and then at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever the answer is, the new employee that the employee that's been there for a minute referred gets a piece of it too. I don't know. Just there's so many different options from an employee referral program that I think could be beneficial as opposed to just the traditional math.
Referrals typically do drop off, though, during this period.
They do.
Because people get comfortable. So
Yep.
it is important. You have to engage them, to give them reasons to refer.
Well, and I think I'm going to laser focus in on the word engage. So this is the group of people that are no longer learning the initial, how do I do the job? This is the right group to ask, what are your suggestions? This is the right group to say, how do we want to get involved in our community? This is the right group to put on a process improvement team or an employee culture team. This is the right group to start including in any of those types of extra things that make the work community and interesting.
I love it.
Yeah. Another thing we can focus on in this period is recognition. So, things like, when is their 1-year anniversary? What are you going to do about that? Are you going to drop by their desk and tap their shoulder and say, way to go?
Yeah.
Or are you going to put a half-page newspaper article in the local newspaper?
Yeah.
Are you going to publish something in a trade publication about their promotion or an achievement that they have? Are you going to give them, and my team teases me a lot about this, but I like to do trophies, funny trophies. Some of them are shaped like bananas. Some of them are chickens, whatever.
Pigs.
Superheroes. But I like to do trophies. So when if someone does something on our team that is noteworthy, I'll get them a little trophy. They leave them on their desk, or we set them at the office on the shelf, and just show them they're appreciated. also announcing those recognitions in front of their peers is also critical. Letting their peers know, because there's nothing like your coworker at your level or someone who reports up to you saying, hey, I saw in the company newsletter you did XYZ, or hey, you've been here 2 years? Nice,
Yeah.
So I think there are really some small incremental opportunities to recognize those employees, and
Yeah.
that will build more value than we really probably think it does.
I feel like I'm going to wrap up today's episode feeling a little disappointed that I've never received a trophy. Have you received a trophy?
I
from Jason?
haven't. And have I
I feel like we've known
you for
each
a
other
year?
long enough to earn trophies, but
I mean, I think we've known each other for a year, and you've known him since what?
1972.
Mm-hmm.
We think we might be cousins. So I
We
feel like I've earned a trophy.
trophies, Jason.
Well, I don't know if you heard what I said, but I did say you have to do something.
Okay.
Burn.
And that brings us to the end of today's file. Thank you for joining us. Jim?
Close that file.
Thanks for listening to the Workforce Therapy Files. We hope you learned something new, and we're thankful for the time that you spent with us today. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, reach out to us. Our contact information is listed in the show notes. Until next time, keep your head up.